Yes, one. Yep.
Okay. Um, so I
You,
think and jump in and it's like, to me, I mean, um, when I think about data, I mean, you have to take a little bit of a historical view of it and kind of go back and say, you know, there has been data recorded for like millennia. Like
mm,
you go back to historical records, there is records. I mean, Egyptians had records about, grain harvests. Indians have records about like astronomical events. There is information that was recorded on stone, on
mm,
sticks, on metal, on palm fronds.
mm,
All of this, like, I think the key things that are, when you're looking at data to start off with, like, religion was a big aspect. Astronomy was a big aspect. Agriculture was another aspect. Government was a big aspect. All these, all these functions needed somewhere to like store. This is what we know happened, and based on that, what do we do in the future? So it's some level of like what has happened, what do we do as a result of it, and kind of move it forward. Um, that's really kind of like historically, maybe go back and you look at history from a data perspective, you'll find data everywhere in many, many shapes and forms. I think the key area when you historically look back is like, with the Industrial Revolution, there was a real kind of transformation in terms of data, um, uh, with large companies kind of needing to like understand. Like one of the biggest places data and analytics kind of it actually started coming in, believe it or not, is like Guinness.
mm,
Guinness Brewing had a lot of like manufacturing statistics. They were like looking at their initial kind of thing was they were trying to figure out how to increase the productivity of their brewery. So trying to figure out how can they get more beer out.
mm,
And a lot of like the initial kind of approaches to like statistics and testing actually was developed by somebody at Guinness Brewing. That's one of the places that it kind of came out. The other area that one of the things that historically from healthcare has always been a big place where data is being used to say especially public health.
mm,
What are the things that affect people? What do we understand about mortality? Like, if you take like the history of like um, life expectancy and like what's really changed in the last 100 years, one of the biggest things that has happened is public health, and public health has been based on understanding data. So it's like sanitation, washing your hands,
mm,
epidemiology. How does disease spread? COVID is the latest example of it.
mm,
But what's been transformational from a data standpoint on public health is that they've really kind of like leaned into to understand how does disease spread and how do we avoid it? What are the simple things we can do to like avoid disease spreading? And that's had a meaningful impact on just life expectancy. Like even people have gone from like living 50 to 60 was like an old man to now it's like 80 or 90 and 95 is like is an old man. And the difference is the use of data to kind of understand basic public health issues. And they've kind of eliminated that. So if you like look at, what's changed life expectancy in the last 100 years, it's data that public health data has been leveraged by governments to kind of change behavior across the board. The other thing from a data standpoint, government has always been a big part of initially of like creating data because
mm,
the government needs to collect taxes. They need to understand how effective things are. They need to understand how the people are doing. They need to understand what are things that kind of, so the government, any, any, any country if you go to, they have the government statistical organization that's looking at GDP, they're looking at population, they're looking at, health, education, crime. They're looking at the economy, what's happening with it, what's happening with jobs, what's happening with wages, what's happening with inflation. The government is a big part of like what's being collected. And if you look at the other part that across organizations, When data was really starting to come together, one of the biggest places that um, uh, really kind of every organization leans into is it's always count the money. Um, Everybody wants to count the money because if you don't have enough money, you go bankrupt. So any organization, if you look at it, it doesn't matter. You go and like the data that's most pristine is finance, and it's most pristine because that if the dollars and cents are wrong, somebody's losing money, or a company could go bankrupt, a government could get in trouble. So finance has been a big area always. And when you're talking about financial data, it's always a little bit. When you go and look at data, data quality is always an issue. Um, but you'll always find that the financial data is the cleanest piece of data you'll find is always financial data. Um, because in the end, the accountants still need to make sure that the numbers match up.
Correct.
It's not by means perfect, but it's typically that. So, I mean, I think one of the things just definitely going back to data, as if you think about it, is that industrial revolution and just the scale of production and everything that happened with it really drove like the need for data to be collected at a scale that it wasn't collected before. And that starting in the middle of the 19th century all the way to the middle of the 20th century, that's kind of what happened. Um, Around the middle of the 20th century, things that started to change things from a data standpoint is IBM started to create larger computers. You had computers, you had databases, you had an ability to collect more data, you had an ability to structure the data. So even into the 80s, when I started, we're still talking relational databases. That you have a table that's related to another table, that you're pulling the tables together. Relational tables allowed you to store a lot more data. And when you have with data, it's always like if the pipe is bigger, more water flows through it. And what these things start to do from an IT standpoint is then you start to like have much larger computers with greater storage and ability to kind of create more complex data storage. And with that, they started to store more data. And that changed, the availability of data and what's available there. And then the other things that really kind of come into like, the 20th century is basically government and companies start to really like lean into and say, you know, we want to understand these things. We want to understand about economy. We want to understand about crime. We need to understand about social problems. And companies also started leaning to say, we can collect this data on our customers. We can collect data on our operations. We can collect data on our financial performance. We can collect data on, and all of this will help us run this company better. And with modern financial management and professional management, that kind of start to bring a lot more data into the equation. And really, it's the starting of what they call a data-driven organization that really is kind of it's really kind of with modern like technology companies have kind of probably have reached the epitome of what I considered like a really data-driven organization right now. Just a brief, these are some of the things to think about when you look back at the history of data and where it was up until I'd say the 1980s. This is there's a spectrum where you look at data was getting collected, it was being stored, it was being cataloged, it was in warehoused, and then it's like once it's there, somebody was going and looking at it and say, what do I do with this? What's the use case that I'm going to put this data to use? Okay.
Next slide.
Next slide. So that's just
Vijay, can you put it in slideshow?
Okay.
Or you want to do this better?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
So I think the one thing that the one point of time that really kind of say from a data standpoint really kind of jumped out as around 2000. And if you look at, I have there was a slide I used to use where you look at the amount of data that was collected. And there's really kind of a sharp, it's not even a sharp, it's like the amount of data we collected started increasing, doubling every couple of years.
Hmm.
That's like collectively across the world, we were just collecting just just twice as much every few years. It was just kind of exploded. And just like data has been collected in all kinds of points in all kinds of ways. And if you look at what the really kind of the start of that was the rise of the internet. Once the internet came in place, now you had more points of contact. You had people browsing, you had people engaging with content on a web page. They started to do actions on the page that we wanted to know about. We started to send them emails. We started to market to them. All of these kind of the amount of data just exploded in a way that there is no comparison before that. I mean, it's like if you look, I don't have that graph, but if you see that graph, you'll see it's just an explosion of data. Uh, and it's really when you start with Web 1.0 and then going to Web 2.0, all of that started to create multiple layers of data that was being collected um, around mainly around consumer behavior. Uh, it was a way business processes moved from the physical world to the digital world, where you before things happened in a real world, now things happened on a web page based on the actions you were taking. And the company's engagement, I mean, your sales process before Amazon was going into the store and talking to someone or buying a product. Now it's entirely recorded from the point you're looking at the product all the way till you purchase. Every action you're taking is being recorded, and every action you're taking is being stored. And in between, if you need help, all your help is through a digital kind of conduit which creates data. So I know what you want and why you want it and what's stopping you from buying it. And then I'm trying to figure out ways in which I can help you kind of address that. Um, the second part of it is really kind of there's an explosion in terms of data warehousing. I mean, you look at Oracle, Siebel, PeopleSoft, um, Salesforce, just an explosion in terms of the ability to store and warehouse data so that it's easily accessible for applications, for analysis, for business processes, for various things that need to happen. The other thing it really started, the like you asked at the beginning, I work with GM on what they call their CRM, which is basically it's storing all their information about GM customers. So we know their vehicle history, we know their experience with the vehicle, we know if they were interested in specific vehicles, we know if they reached out on specific vehicles, we know what happened when we send them a message. All of this is getting stored in a CRM that I can query and figure out if I wanted a specific set of customers that we want to message with, we will pull that specific audience and we'll start to look at them. So that CRM side that started to really give companies a better understanding of their customers and what that meant. And then from an ERP standpoint, ERP systems started to put a lot of like business processes into warehouse structure. So where does my inventory sit? What is happening with production? If I need production to move from transportation, that be transported to my end sales point. If it needs in a digital world, if it needs to go directly to the customer, what does that mean? And the SAPs of the world kind of started to really jump up in terms of like helping automate where data sits, how it's being used for both a business process and an understanding of customer. I think the last part that really jumped up in terms of my data standpoint is the advent of the mobile phone and SMS. Uh, what that changes is basically before people would come once a day, maybe to the site, maybe they come once a month, maybe they come once a week. Once you have an app and once you have a phone in their hand, you might be talking to a customer 10 times a day. depending on the type of app. You have information of what they're doing in real time, in near real time. You start to understand a lot about that, and it depends on the app usage. I mean, like Amazon as a good example is, you know, they have a bit of information on me maybe twice a day when I interact with their app in some way or fashion. And that's all due to the it's in my phone. My phone's in my hand. I'm interacting with them. Anything I'm doing on the phone is getting collected. And I would say anything, most things. I mean, some things they decide it's not particularly useful. And they decide, but real-time data collection, especially with phones and SMS is the other part of it is then we have a real-time ability to communicate with our customers. We can send you a message. You can be McDonald's, as you go through the drive-through in McDonald's, that we can message you right before and tell you, here's a coupon for you to buy this product. And we can push your sales that way. If you are near my competitor, I can message you based on your phone, and I understand if I am Nike and I see you in front of Puma, uh, because your phone tells me that you're near a Puma store, I can then message you and tell you that here is a new product that Nike is coming out. Here's an offer for it. Here's some things to kind of like engage with you and kind of change your behavior. And that's where the real-time part of it start. And this has been like, I mean, most customers of mine at some level, they want to be real time. They want to real time kind of engage with their customers and change behavior. Part of it is always like different businesses have different level of real time kind of engagement. Amazon's a good example where, you're engaging with them on a very regular basis. I had like Bridgestone was one of my clients, and they wanted to continuously engage with their customers. And I was like, real time is fine. You mean talking on real time is fine. I buy tires every 5 years. What are you going to real time communicate with me? You want to know when I'm ready to buy a tire, and then you need to figure out what are the signals that tell me that. I mean, it might be weather, it might be I know the age of your car or your tire, and I can use that data to sign up and say that you may be close to buying a tire, and I need to communicate you, or you're close to other tire store, or I know information from the dealer. The dealer told you that you should change your tires. All of this kind of tells me, what are the signals I see right now that I should leverage to kind of communicate with you. So from a financial services, that's a place where they use a lot of data, is especially like if you buy a house, then we know a whole bunch of things will happen. We know you will need furniture. So if I'm a furniture company, if I know that you just bought a house, I'm going to start to communicate with you on buying furniture.
Yeah.
I might start to communicate to you on a household project that you might need. I might start to communicate on like various things that you do when you buy a house. So it's like what that has made is, information that's important for various like financial services information is now valuable to other companies. And what that's meant is now they have started becoming bigger data brokers. So like if I've like Amazon's a good example, but if you take any large financial services, a big part of their business is actually selling their data. And it's selling their data to other companies who you want to use that data to target their customers. And there are laws that are coming into place to kind of say what can you do and what can't you do with that information. But there are very large data brokers. There's companies like Axiom. And if you think about it, Google, Facebook are all very large data brokers. They have so much information about your interests. They have so much information about what you did, what you engaged with, who you connected with, where have you been, uh, and all that data allows them to like get a better understanding of this person will be interested in this product or this service or this content or this video or that text or what's the way we can like communicate with you. And all of this starts with their ability to collect data en masse. And the largest social media organization that really, on a real-time basis, I mean, Apple gets so much data about you. You take your phone and like it's like on some of it, and they have rules in terms of how they can use your data. And they have legal obligations both in Europe, especially in the US, California. Europe, California, and the rest of the US is the way I think about the way data gets regulated and the use of data gets regulated. Europe has the most stringent rules. California is the next in the US, and then the US, the rest of it, and I think India and the Middle East probably there are no rules. You do whatever you want to do as long as a government is not happy with you. Anything goes. So uh, so I think the thing is definitely thinking about with from 2000 onwards is just the scale of data and how it's kind of changed, and the rise of the mobile phone and the rise of various IT systems that allow you to collect, catalog, warehouse, and leverage data. Okay. I talked a lot. Any thoughts? Every jump in.
No, it's good. These parts are not things that we really think of, but putting that history and context is good. You can go faster, no problem.
I think the next part would be is like if you take it from a historical perspective, 2010 onwards is really when 2000 data really jumped, but 2010 it was a step function jump above 2000. And that started with, first there's a technology aspect to it. You started having cloud-based technologies, whether it's Hadoop, Spark, distributed systems, and cloud computing, where AWS came into place, Google Cloud, Oracle has its cloud, and what am I missing with the other big? But what this allows to do is like basically you could store a lot more data. And before and even in the 2010s, it's like, there's a limit to how much data you want to collect because there's a limit to how much you can store. And there's a storage kind of limitation as well as a cost limitation. These technologies really kind of started to like scale up what the cost of storing data was and what the cost of using that data is, and as well as the limits on how much data you could store. So now these start to allow you to basically, if you wanted to collect data real time, you could. And it wouldn't be like so exorbitant that you would have to like justify why this data was being collected and why it's being stored. Now, and it was not, it's very kind of like understandable that, the people that really started to push this was like Amazons and the Googles of the world, because they were collecting their problem was they were collecting real-time data, and they were looking at, what's available in the marketplace from a technology standpoint. And it's like the amount of terabytes that we need to store, we don't see anybody in the marketplace that can do that for us. So they started creating their own technologies to like both store the data and leverage the data. And that's why AWS and Google Cloud kind of came into place, because they were solving for their own business problems, and they were looking at the marketplace from the standpoint is nobody can do this for us except us. And so they started to solve it themselves. And that started to push Azure, and Microsoft started to get into the mix of things as well. The other thing that really, 2010 onwards, you start to see the amount of data that's being collected on social media and through user-generated content. So like Facebook Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, when you think about it, like every interaction you have with it, some data is being created. I know which videos you're looking at, which articles you're looking at, how long you engaged with, what's the when did you stop, why did you stop, who did you share it with? All of that is data points, and that is collected at for Facebook. It's like they're collecting it for 3 billion people. So the amount of you can scale up that amount of data and say just how much data is being collected. The other part of it is then people start with user-generated content, your engagement and your sharing and how you kind of change it. TikTok is a good example of where, that's like the other extreme of user-generated content. It's like the the people started creating their own content and sharing it, and they're putting pieces of videos together. My daughter goes and creates a video and she puts it on TikTok and she gets her friends to it and she sees someone. It's like there's this level of kind of engagement on these devices and these apps that's created its own set of data. The other aspect of it is from an IoT and a sensor standpoint, and this is where Bhatia Sahib will maybe lean in a little bit, is that there became a recognition that any machine could have a sensor that collects data, and we can leverage that data for various purposes. We can use it for understanding failure, which is, I think, one of the biggest things is we want to know when a machine's about to fail so that we can act on it. I mean, going back when I was at United, we had like a sense we were collecting data from all the engines, and our use case was we were trying to figure out will an engine fail in the middle of a flight? And we were trying to predict whether that will happen. And we wanted to see, based on all the data we were getting real time from the engine, can we predict that there's likely to be failure in the next, so we can proactively kind of do maintenance on it, as well as from a safety standpoint. I mean, more aircraft have like two engines. One failing is not catastrophic. Two failing is catastrophic. So we wanted to see, and so we had a model that we built was leveraging. So we're getting data on every aspect of an aircraft engine. It gives you about 1,000 data points that you can collect real time as the plane's flying, and we're using that data point to say how far is this aircraft engine from failing, and what can we do as a result of it. And that part of it, I mean, both that's jumped into wearables. Everybody has a wearable now that's collecting data, telling you the physical health information about it. Your phones become much more sensitive. Various machines have become, can send information that will kind of trigger an action, whether it's, there's a lack of inventory in this line, and if you don't bring more inventory here, to robotics and where it's going in terms of retrieval of things, putting things, moving things, automating various aspects of the manufacturing process. All of this is based on machines collecting data that can be acted upon with an algorithm if there are a set of rules, or it can be sent to someone to process. So there's a difference. I mean, with a lot of things, you can collect the data and say, if X, Y, and Z happens, do Z. That's a set of rules, and you can write those rules pretty complicated if you want to. Or you can say, if all of these things happen, let me send you a signal, say something's going on here and you need to act. So in our case, if there's the case we're with aircraft industry, if we think this engine is about to fail, then we want a mechanic to be looking at it at the next stop. Or we might want the plane to land immediately, and someone to look at it before it goes forward. So that it's not necessarily we are acting on it, but we're giving a very loud alarm going off saying that this is something that needs to be acted upon. The other aspect of it is with the amount of data in machine learning and AI. So when I started in analytics, we would build these models, You just, you take a million records, you figure out some pattern, you create a prediction based on the model. What became kind of difficult as things kind of went along is that if you're trying to do that real time, it's the problem because no one's going to build a model overnight. And the amount of data that comes through regularly meant that the models continuously kind of changing. That kind of drove the need to have this far more automated and in a technology fashion versus a real person building the model. Because before that, we would build the models. I build a model, put it out there and use it. Now this allows like let's automate the way we would build a model. And a lot of the models and Chajan gave a good talk on like what happens there. I'm not an expert on machine learning. I'm close enough to like understand what they do. It's because a lot of what they do is like they take a lot of data, run it through a neural net, fit the model, and the model gives a prediction. At a fundamental level, that's what happens. And then from there, you use that. It sends that information out to a particular use case that's been defined, and the use case gets executed upon either by a person or by an automated process. And which one you do, it depends on you. So in a marketing case where we would do, it's like we're collecting data on our customers real time. There is a model that's predicting who's likely to buy. There's a model that's predicting when they're likely to buy. And there's a model that's predicting where they're likely to buy. And we know all that pieces of information. We can then send a message through various marketing channels. We can send it through Facebook digitally. We can send it through SMS. We can send you an email. We then like use the model and its prediction to say, this person we need a message with the message, send them a very specific message because we understand where they are and what we need to do to convert them. And that's made a real difference in marketing in the last 10, 20 years in terms of the level of how data gets leveraged from a marketing standpoint and how it gets pushed into it. All of this is kind of just the scale of it. Kind of one of the things that has really kind of come into play is regulation has come into play because no one's comfortable with this. Even I'm a regular user of data. My job is all about data and kind of figuring out how we leverage data. But data is being used in all kinds of ways with very few guardrails. So two places where it really kind of started to regulation started to come into place. One is GDPR, which is the European Union's kind of data regulation act, where they said that you have a right not to be followed. You have a right for a model not to like be used to market to you. There's several aspects of it. So if you're using data in the European Union, there are far more regulatory barriers to using it. And it's the most stringent. So, and it's problematic even when you're a US based company selling to a US consumer, for example. There are even parts of the law that makes you like if someone from Britain were to travel to New York, they have a right to be forgotten while they're in New York. And we're like, if you want to like, if I want a message to a European Union consumer in the US, I have restrictions for it. I can get into trouble trying to message them. And the second place where regulations have really come into place is California. California leads the US in terms of regulations. When any part of like any kind of legal kind of framework that happens, whether it's automobiles, and California has its own set of regulations about how data can be used. And it's a little kind of throws me off that most of the Silicon Valley and most of the biggest data users are based in California, and California has some of the most stringent regulations. It has the most stringent regulations in the US from a data use perspective. If you want to communicate to somebody in California, there are more hurdles you need to jump. and more rules that you need to follow, and which you can then become liable for, and you can be fined for, and you can be like you can lose a lot of money for. This is an area that I think it'll continue to be a case that I think there really hasn't been they haven't figured out what is what needs to be regulated. How do you how do you do it in a sensible fashion? Like it's not, you don't want to destroy the business. You want to give the consumer, reasonable protections that anybody should expect. But it's like it's such a complicated ecosystem between where data sits, how it's being used, what it's being leveraged, how it can propagates, that it's kind of hard to like figure out what's the right regulatory scheme. But it's something that's going to keep continuing to happen. Okay. Which all this kind of brings us back to where we are right now and the moment we are in terms of like AI and ML and where that kind of sits and how it's being leveraged. I think Shajan gave a great talk kind of like on AI and ML and what he had to say. I'm probably not going to add much more to it than what he had to say, but at a fundamental level, what AI and ML is doing is there are foundational models that you can use, and then you can use the foundational models and layer on your own set of logic on top of it to then say, this is what I want, this is how I want you to use the model. And at a real level, I mean, if you think about some of the things that happen here, one of the original kind of uses of AI was this, the US Post Office wanted to like sort mail, and people were writing the addresses with a pen and paper on the envelope. And what they had to do before was that somebody had to physically look at where you needed to send the letter and decide this is where it needed to go. And based on that, it get pushed to the right post office. As you can think, that's a completely manual process. So one of the initial kind of AI kind of like application, which was I think in the 80s, was for a computer to be able to read the envelope, read what you wrote, and break out the characters, and then say, this is where the person who wrote it, this is the address it needs to go. And this is the way the letter that you put in the post office, the post box needs to go. What's the next place it needs to go? And how does it get to your end destination? But for that to happen, you had to have a computer that could read handwritten addresses and figure out what it is that person wrote, translate that into a set of like characters, and use the characters to then route the letter to where it needed to go. So think about that. And this is like from the 80s. And they've been doing this now for like, I don't know, for 40, 50 years. And they've eliminated a lot of people that used to do hand sorting of letters because they're now starting to do that. From a foundational standpoint, the other aspect to think about is that I think ChatGPT gets a lot of like airtime and speak, but when you think about AI, I think about it as text, which ChatGPT is a good example of. Image is that the need to look at all the pictures on your phone and kind of categorize them, label them, use them for a particular purpose. Voice, and what Siri was originally, Siri and Alexa did was basically an ability to take
I can't connect to your Wi-Fi network. You can find setup instructions in the help
she
center.
heard it. She heard it. But anyway, it was basically, it needed to translate voice into like data, and use that voice data to then translate how does it need to respond to you, which is another part of it. So when you think about AI, you kind of like go across how it's being used. It's used in turning text into data, voice into data, video into data, and leveraging it across different models. The other aspect that's really kind of has been there and continue to be is that, and Amazon kind of is a perfect example of this, is that how do I make your experience extremely personalized? If I know a lot more information about you, what do you like, what do you want, what are you likely to be interested in, recommendation engines to say, this is the things you need to buy, this is the content you need to read, this is all these aspects that are like, and this has been there for a long time. It's just at this point we have a lot more data about you, and we can get better at giving you the recommendation that you're more likely to. And the other aspect is like with real-time data, we can kind of evolve the recommendation as you provide us more data. If you see that you're interested in content right now, so your YouTube feed is a good example, is it? The moment you go and like click on a few videos, watch it, you'll see the next few times you're going to see your content change. That's because of real time. It's collecting data on what you did. It's deciding based on that, saying that because you're interested in all of this, you're likely to be interested in this set of content. And this recommendation engine aspect has been really kind of scaled up. Pretty much every company does some version of it, as long as they have enough data to like personalize the recommendation. From a data collection standpoint, with real-time data, it presents its own challenges because the scale of data that you have to collect, the need to like process it, the need to then leverage it across models. So there's been, and I'm not an expert on any of these, Kafka, Flink, various technologies have come into place to kind of process the real-time data because the scale of data has just kind of changed. We used to be able to, we would get, you went into a store and one person would record the data. Now we're seeing everything you're doing on your phone, on the web, and we're getting just so much more data about you than we used to not get. And that meant that's a challenge also because we just have to collect far more data about you. The other thing, and this, I pulled this out of ChatGPT. I told him to give an agenda. So it said COVID-19 was a big part. I think it was important. I think the main thing COVID-19 to me kind of changed is everybody got used to like seeing a dashboard in a different way. We started to see data on deaths. We started to see hospitalization. We started to see it become like a popular pastime to look at dashboards. And dashboards are basically a representation of the data we've collected in a way that we've structured it so that you can understand it. And COVID-19 really kind of like put dashboards on like everybody now expects a dashboard. We make sense of life in terms of like this dashboard and that dashboard and things we're interested in. But I think the one thing to keep in mind definitely with dashboards, there's a saying a long time, there's lies, bigger lies in statistics. How you choose to represent data is entirely up to the analysts or whoever's choosing to like represent data. And you can represent it any sort of way. As when in analytics, one of the key things, I mean, I learned as I was coming up, and I've told everybody that works for me or I worked with, is that it's very important to have an ethical framework as you do analysis. Because you can take the data and you can misrepresent it in many sort of ways and many subtle ways in which you can change somebody's mind because you chose to represent the data in a particular way. Especially if you're like a little bit more emotional intelligent, then you can just kind of figure out if I want to affect them, this is the way I would affect them. And there's a lack, if you're ethically challenged data and analytics, you can be dangerous with data analytics and the way you represent it. The other thing, and I am not an expert on decentralized data trends, but Bitcoin has kind of gotten a lot of like, press. I mean, I'm not personally a fan of Bitcoin. I don't buy it. I don't care about it. I think it's a little bit of a smoke. But there is an underlying theme about Bitcoin's importance. Is the technology that feeds into Bitcoin. The blockchain technology is an important thing to understand because what blockchains does is in a way is that um, it creates privacy in the way data gets processed so that and that's why Bitcoin is being used heavily by criminal organizations because now there's almost an impossibility to track who's done what, especially as I mean, the amount of data and the way it's being leveraged. People have used Bitcoin as a way to kind of create privacy for themselves as they exchange data. And that's done both in good ways so that you're avoiding being tracked in a way that you don't want to be tracked, and in malign ways where criminal organizations across the world are using Bitcoin to kind of move money, avoid kind of money laundering regulations, various things. And it's really at a core of it is that there is a underlying theme here of people wanting to own their own data, controlling the terms of like, if I want to exchange data with you, this is the way I will exchange it. And this is what I expect in return. And these are my expectations of how you will use my data and what purposes you will use it for and who will have access to it. And that blockchain technology and where it's going is an emerging kind of like thing that's happening from the way data is kind of being leveraged across the board, how it's being house sourced, what people want from data. And I think definitely that thinking about that is another aspect of kind of that I think was it. That was everything that I wanted to that ChatGPT told me I should do, and I just added a little bit to it.
Excellent. Can you unshare the screen? What is this?
I mean, that's just the presentation.
Okay, Vijay, thank you for taking us through this very slow yet deep understanding of data. So my question is slowly I started thinking that the way the data is evolving is the way in which our our brain is also functioning. Do you believe like that? Our brain is also evaluating data models, and our processing ability and storage ability is good, and probably we are emulating that in data models that are outside. Do you think?
My perspective is there are two things that's happening from a data perspective. One is financial. Money drives where data goes. And the second thing is politics. From a political standpoint, governments and political organizations kind of drive the way data is leveraged, and they want a level of control in a way of like this kind of gets processed. So I think if from a personal standpoint, I don't think we have the same level of control in deciding this is the way we want to process data. Companies are kind of an organization are giving you data if they feel like that helps them financially, and if enhancing your capabilities is in their financial interest, they will give it to you. But it's not like I don't know if it's as much a choice on the side of people deciding that they want to consume data in this fashion. It's more of it's what's been given to you, and you're choosing to say, yeah, I like that. But I don't know if it's a choice. I don't know if it's a consumer choice driven thing.
No, see, my question is different. My question is now that LLMs have come in, etc., we are now more open. We are sharing data in a much more aggressive manner. And right, don't you think so that we are sharing? And the LLMs are sort of emulating the way our brain works. And now we are almost getting, singularity. We are almost getting Grok 4 is almost like the full-fledged PhD guy there. So like There is no need to study anymore. So things are changing, right? So this sort of compute power and data aggregation and sharing of data is changing the way in which even we will live, So
Yeah, Wahid, I'll just add on something that I was reading a couple days ago, right? About AGI, right? So as we are moving towards AGI, I think you're absolutely right. It's pretty much collecting all information about each one of us, right? The billions of people, and it is able to emulate it exactly like the brain,
yes,
right? And that is what is making it go closer, or we are approaching AGI as soon as in the next 2 years is what not even 2030 right now. So the dates have been advanced. So I completely think that Chat GPT, for example, right? Google, if you go to Gemini and start creating your own gems, right? It's pretty much you are giving it everything about yourself. If you are not careful, it can pretty much clone you. Which is exactly the journey towards grasping everything in your brain and pretty much understanding. So I was recently listening to the Hilton's talk on AGI and consciousness, and people have started to believe that these LLMs are almost conscious, almost. It can even empathize with you. If you really start talking to it and discussing, it can really empathize and even understand you, is what I feel. That's my feeling.
now my point is, okay, all this is happening. When this happens, what is the implication in the way we live,
I
in the
I
way
have I have a different perspective on I mean, at the end of it, y- I'm not a very, I don't think that much about these LLMs.
Mm.
But at some fundamental level, all it is you've scraped all the data on the web.
Mm.
You've tokenized the data, fed it into a neural net, and neural net is giving you an output,
correct.
character by character. That's what it's doing. It's not as smart as people think it is. Because at some level, all it is doing doing a prediction model at scale.
Mm.
And if you build any prediction model, it's wrong a lot of the times. And every LLM is wrong a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's saying like, I'm going to live my life based on what an LLM is telling me. You're going to get into a lot of trouble a lot of the time. Can it be useful? Absolutely. And you should use it for whatever purpose you can use it for.
Mm.
And I think you want to figure out the right ways in which you leverage it.
Mm.
I've seen some of the AGI kind of discussion and where it's good. I still think at the fundamental, they're kind of like clueless children in some level. That's what I think about like an LLM is. It's like a child. It depends on like what you fed it. If you fed it the right sort of data, it'll react to that data. But it's kind of like not very smart beyond that. The things it does really well that you're not capable of doing is to be able to process a lot more information than you can. It's able to take a terabyte of data and process it and give you an output from it. You're not capable of it. What it's not good at is distinctly kind of putting things, saying, this is me talking to my friend over here, and this is a different friend that I'm talking to, and we have a different relationship, and this is how we're going to talk. That kind of human level categorization, at some level, it's not capable of doing it. And this AGI discussion kind of misses that point. And the second aspect of it is that there is a lot of junk data. If you go out there into the world and you pull data from every website and you pull it into it, the reason why Grok gets into trouble with Nazi salutes and all of it, because it's collecting data from every damn source. It doesn't know the difference between this data and that data. It will process it and give you output based on everything. It doesn't know to say that, hey, this is not good data. I shouldn't be using this data, unless an engineer specifically goes and tells it, don't do that. This is a bad thing. You shouldn't be doing it. And they put that exact rule in there. So it's like it, it it's computing at a scale, and that you should leverage. I mean, you should leverage it because you understand what it's able to do. It's able to process more information than you can and give you an output that you can work with. Understand it'll be wrong a lot of the times. I mean, if it's what it's giving you back, maybe you have to take it with, you have to evaluate what it's giving you back. You have to make sure that you trust it. You want to make sure that what it's using for, like coming out of it, you're okay with, and then you can leverage it.
Yeah.
The other part of it is, you know, the value exchange is a critical question. It's able to collect data from all over the web and it's processing and bringing it. Whether I choose to give it my data is a question for me. And that depends on the relationship I have with it. If I feel I'm getting value out of it, I will give it more information.
Correct.
If I feel you're giving me junk, you're not paying attention to me, you're not giving the outputs I need, like a bad friend, I'm going to drop you. Because I'm not getting the value out of this exchange. So the value exchange is kind of critical. I mean, I need to feel at the end of it, in my interaction with you, you're giving me something that I want.
Vijay, not everybody is like you trying to make a a judgment based on whether like
Everybody is. No, everybody is. In every interaction we do, we make a judgment. I mean, however conscious you are, you decide, do I want to continue this conversation?
no, but there is a herd mentality now. Now everybody is starting to like everybody started using ChatGPT. Nobody looks into the deeper aspects of sharing
No,
a
but is it good? I mean, you and I having this conversation, but we're choosing to keep this conversation going. If I have a conversation with ChatGPT, at the end, I'll make a decision whether I want to keep the conversation going. And that's based on whether I find what it's giving me is useful or not. If I don't feel useful, I will drop it. I'll stop giving you information. It's not a very conscious or deep discussion. It's like, do I find it useful is a fundamental question. And we're making that decision. I mean, it's the same decision we make when we choose to keep a conversation going.
Correct.
It's like, do I want to keep talking to this person? You have the same kind of decision to make with ChatGPT or any kind of thing. Do I want to continue to engage with this?
See, now multiple companies are competing to give this this sort of more positive, like OpenAI is there, Gemini is there. They are more and more giving these options, which is making us sort of change our opinion as to giving data or working. I fully agree that it's the collaboration with such tools and use of data in our own context which will actually best get the best advantage. But if everybody starts doing this, won't it change the way in which we live?
It will change the way in which certain people interact, right? I mean, if your interaction with ChatGPT is your interaction with ChatGPT. ChatGPT may have 1 million interactions with 1 million people and may be collecting data on those 1 million people. And that's not to change what ChatGPT does. And people start to act on what it tells them. That's possible. And that may affect your life. But it's your interaction with ChatGPT is your interaction with ChatGPT. It's nothing else. And you have a decision to make. There's a population-based decision where everybody is doing that, and then that creates enough data for ChatGPT to then use and say, 1,000 people are asking me how to cook chana, so I must. This is the one. This is the way, and this is the question they were asking me to make chana. I mean, that's going to like get into what response again. Maybe it starts to affect people, and that's to translate out. But there is there is your interaction with ChatGPT and you're deciding whether it's useful. At scale, everybody is doing that. And at scale, we are creating data for ChatGPT and ChatGPT is reacting to that data. Whether that starts to affect all us as a collectively, maybe. It's kind of it, but it's the value exchange is always there. Everybody's making that decision like, do I keep this conversation going?
I would open the floor to everybody to ask questions. Smita, Arun, Monali.
I'm a listener, totally.
Music and data.
Undalo.
I was saying like the AI application for music and how that's changing the way composition. Like, I mean, it's
Okay.
Yeah, composition and production, there is a lot of
Yeah.
work happening. But that doesn't guarantee that a person can sing for their own
Vijay, tell us some of
enjoyment.
the most
That
modern
doesn't happen,
jargons
right?
that we can
That
come
AI
across.
cannot make you sing, right? AI can only produce the music. But if you have an inherent need to express through music, you need to learn it.
Data modeling, like I don't know.
Okay, CB, you wanted to ask something?
CB, I can't kind of hear you.
CB, louder.
little bit.
Oh, okay. Jazz, Jayanti? Smita?
I mean, I think Manali, the one thing I think about from a data perspective, when you think about music, is like there is a short line between Siri and musical composition from a data perspective. I mean, Siri is essentially what it's like is taking the words you're using and converting it into bits and bytes, and then giving you a response to it. At some level, it's about, sound being converted to data, and that bytes of the data then being used for various purposes, whether it's you can ingest all the bytes in the world, all the sound bytes in the world, and then create music based on that, and say like, I mean, all the musical applications, that's what they're doing, is it's being fed
Yeah.
a whole bunch of like music, and then it's saying I'll convert it all of this into data, and then I will have a model kind of pick bits of sound together to create music. But I think to your point, it's like it's making that choice on a very generalized basis, and maybe it doesn't fit your individual, which I'm hearing is like your individual expression.
Also,
right?
what happens is that a lot of the music which gets made using these data are too perfect. And
Yeah.
so a lot of people who produce such music introduce what is known as a human factor, which is they purposely make, they actually bring about imperfections wantedly into the music to ensure that it sounds more human and not machine made. Because you can very clearly understand when a piece of music is has come out of a machine, vis-a-vis whether it has come out of real musicians, right? You can make out. So the one workaround is this. So I'm sure it's going to get better and better. Obviously, I mean, it's definitely going to get better, and there will come a point when it will be very difficult to find, really just listen and figure out whether it is music which has been done by live musicians or machines. But you're right about that individual expression. I think that's one thing which people like me are definitely banking on, that while music production and people who are producing music are really much more worried, whereas people who are more of B2C, so to speak, who are actually talking to people who want to express themselves, it's still not come to a state where it's a threat or a perceived threat. It seems to be more, your expression, you need to do it's for yourself, it's for your soul, for your whatever, mental health, psychological health. So that part, that learning part is still not. But our lesson plans, etc. Yes, we have all started using a lot of tools to ensure lesson plans and all that. But the actual delivery, yes, maybe to some extent that's also going to get automated. But ultimately, you have to put the effort if you have to sing or play an instrument. If you actually want to play a music, you have to learn it. You just can't do it with any amount of,
I also think like there is with any of these models, I mean, one of the central things I think about it is like it collects all this data and it gives you kind of the average of that data in some ways. I mean, like there is a range of like possibilities, and it kind of figures out the middle of it, and gives you that middle of the lane kind of response. So if you take from a musical standpoint, I think the logical kind of output from a musical kind of model that comes out is that you'll get very average music. Consistently average music is what you'll get. If you really want music that stands out, I don't see how ChatGPT does that, because it's the way a model processes it, it gives you the average. It never gives you the exceptional.
Also, live performance is something which I mean, it is live. So
Yeah.
for those who want to listen to live performance, and I've been to live performances where 50% of the songs have not been sung by the, let's say the singers. They have actually just put the recorded music and they've just lip synced and all that, And you can actually make out, if you have a good ear, you can make out. Musicians, seasoned musicians can easily make out that this fellow is not singing. He's just playing the music on, it's just being played from a player, and he's just lip syncing. He or she is lip syncing. You can make out, and very very well-known singers and renowned singers are known to do that. So a live performance is something you can't know. You can feed it through a computer, and all people have tried all that. You feed, you have already pre-planned, pre-programmed. So even if you sing wrong, it's okay. You can sing whatever rubbish you want. That the output is fed through a computer and it's already pre-programmed, and what comes out is so much good. But you can actually make out most of the time that it's pre-programmed, because a live program will always have imperfections, will always have mistakes, and that's the beauty of a live performance.
I mean, it's also like, I think at some level, there is a human connection there, right? I mean, there is the performer and the audience are kind of communicating, and there's an emotional human connection that happens.
Right.
That if it's not real, it's kind of, and if it's not real, right? I mean, that's the second part you're saying. It's like, if I know it's not real, how do I create an emotional connection between me and the audience, where I'm interacting with and the output of something? I don't know what it is.
I have walked out of performances, so I know this, and there are many people like me who have walked out of performances where they have, they've not been sincere.
Yeah, Bejar, you're talking about, high-class single malt users. But there are some people, those who just drink basic, maybe mixed scotch. So let's address to the masses, not like Monali and classes, right? So, yeah, for me, data collection, my first experience was like one of my friends' grandfather died, and we took that ashes to Haridwar, and then we went to this priest families and all, and they have data of their entire family from last 10-15 generations. They open their book and they say that you are living here from so many, your father came, grandfather came, and see. So in India, I think this is very ancient, the data collection.
Yeah.
And the second was like when we were in school, like 9, 10th, 11th, so we were in government accommodation. So the ladies, including my mom, they used to have all the data. Like my father, my friend is having, affair with somebody. I didn't know, but my mother knew. So this is about how they're collecting data and how this information is gone.
Yeah.
But at the end, for me, both were like no use. Whether they are collecting data by, these Haridwar Panditji or my mom. At the end, it doesn't change my life.
Yeah.
So we have to look at, I'm here. Tomorrow, what will happen to my life with this data? Correct? I mean, you can make these things very complicated and very simple.
No, but I'm a little scared about a few things, Vijay. Just tell me. So 3 days back, I'd gone to a hypermarket and I'd bought a couple of some glass bowls, okay? Just for the kitchen and things like that, for dining. Simple glass bowls. And along with that, I bought a whole lot of stuff, but I did buy about 6 glass bowls. Okay, now, I came home and I was doing some work, and in between I opened my Facebook or something, and I got a pop-up offer on glass bowls. Okay. So I was like, this is like, it's very scary because obviously somewhere that data in the cloud, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you know the answer to it. And, I'm assuming that there's an algorithm which has picked it up from the cloud or something. I don't know. Some algorithm is pushing. They know that I'm a candidate for glass balls. So here, another product which is at an offer for glass balls.
Yeah. So
For
I
me,
think
it will come ice
right.
cream, because I'm foodie, so they will show ice cream. For you,
So
they
what
should
happened?
No,
already
see,
have
it's
glass
not
balls.
about, it's not about what you're seeing. I'm saying if I'm seeing in Facebook, I'm seeing ice cream can come. It's okay. I'm saying I have bought in a marketplace, in a
Yeah.
physical store.
Yeah. So what happens? I mean, I'll say
It means, sorry, Bijay, it means when you're talking, so somebody is listening to you also in some cases. Yeah, it's possible,
Yeah.
right?
So like Bijoy, I guess Bijoy can give
it's
me maybe a
but
technical answer to it.
so what I expect to happen is basically when you paid for it, you used a credit card,
Okay, debit card. Okay.
a debit card. That debit card told them that it's Monali. Monali got a transaction, said that there was a transaction, data created that Monali bought glass bowls. That data then went to a bank, which the bank then has a relationship with Facebook, where they share this is everything that Monali has bought in the last, whatever they. So that data got exchanged to Facebook. Facebook now knows that you bought glass bowls, and then it's the glass bowl company said, we want to target consumers that buy glass bowls. So you saw an ad.
Yeah, that's what I assume too.
Yeah.
That,
So it's like that. The key to it was that you used a debit card, and
Right.
if you paid money, if you paid cash instead of it, probably you wouldn't see
It wouldn't
that.
have happened. Yeah.
No, but the bill goes to the bank. But it's only the final amount, right? But the bill also goes to the bank.
The bank the bank knows your entire transaction.
So the
they
bank
know
will know that I bought dish. I mean, I bought glass. I bought some
bank,
carrot and some apples. They know everything.
Yeah,
Line items.
it depends on their sharing agreement with the retail store. The sum of it, it's between either the retail store and the bank that information that got shared with Facebook. So the retail store knew exactly what you bought.
Right. That of course they would. Yeah.
They have data on that. The bank knows what your transaction. Between these two, data gets shared to Facebook, and Facebook now knows you bought a glass bowl.
Everything is out there. That means.
Yeah, this is
pretty
what
much everything you do that way.
Yeah, this is what he was saying, that there are no rules in India regarding data. But this wouldn't happen in California, right? This wouldn't happen in California.
Depends on there are rules on exactly what can happen. A lot of it is consumer choice. What the rules are is basically you can choose not to be tracked. That's the core of it. You can say that I don't want my data to be shared. So that I don't want you to use my data in this point. So you have a choice to decide that I don't want to see this glass bowl ad. Sorry. And for that, you cannot share my data with Facebook. But you have to make that choice. What the rules are basically that you can go and opt and you can say that these things cannot happen. My data cannot be shared. I cannot be tracked. I need to be forgotten. There is a set of options that you can opt into. And if once you've opted into it, all companies have to follow it or they get financial kind of fines against them. So then they will. It's about giving consumer choice more than like you can't be tracked. And if you don't care, you don't act, you don't do anything, you'll be tracked anywhere, and things will happen in any of these places. But the difference is there is a mechanism for you to exercise choice. You can say, yeah, I'm not going to let you track me. I don't want you to be tracked.
See,
Like,
for your
GDPR is actually even worse. What GDPR does is because some of these a model decides to target you. You're likely to buy something and a model says this is the person that you need to target. In GDPR, you actually if you've been targeted with an ad, you have a right to find out what the model that was used and how it decided to target you. So they actually have to they have to keep the models kind of documented and how the model was used, because it's not just data. It's like data gets translated into models.
So to wind up, then is it?
I think Sibi had some question. I don't know.
Sibi, you there? Sibi has guess.
Hi.
Yes. Sibi.
No, I was asking about the various jargons that keeps coming up. The new jargons like data wrangling, I don't know, a lot of things that we hear nowadays.
What is the data wrangling?
Data wrangling is basically data is usually garbage when it comes in. There's a lot of problems with the data. Like you take a typical data scientist analyst, I should say it's like 80% of your time is cleaning up the data so that you can actually do something with it. Data wrangling is just the term that's used for that. It's like there's a lot of garbage in the data that you need to then say, I'm going to drop this record, I'm going to clean this variable up, I need to do these things just so that I can use the data. And
Vijay, can you give example?
It may be that a lot of times, like I get addresses of people, right? And the address will be wrong. What we do then is that we have like kind of things to kind of like correct your address. So we get a certain address, you put in street versus ST versus road or RD. We then have to translate that and say, this is the normalized address I should use. And the reason I want to use it, I want to connect different databases together, and I need a consistent address for it, because the address is what I'm joining on. So if the data is bad, I can't really join it. So it's like a lot of things I do. The other thing that gets very problematic for me is like anytime you give people the choice of putting in open text, I hate open text forms. They will put absolutely anything in it. It's like you look at the data, it's like, man, some people will write 2 paragraphs, another will write two words, another will write TP or something. Like it's like every version is like going through text. Anytime you see this text kind of format, so it's open text, it is such garbage you get out of it. It's just people do every sort of way in which to like collect it. And then you look at the data and like, man, how does the human brain work like this? So one of the things like we try to force is like we give you options, we give you a list. These are the 10 things, select one of these. So the data comes through in just these formats. I don't have to spend 2 hours trying to clean up whatever it is that people put in there.
Mohammed?
Yeah, hello. So I'm Anzeen. I was tuning into the session along with my mother, who is a 94 alumni of CET.
Okay.
She's Sajita.
Okay.
A little about myself. I'm a computer engineer myself, and I was following the session today on data and the different topics we touched on along with data, and a question arose. So we looked into different ways that data is monetized in big corporates and just in any company, how we can leverage data, whether it's personal or public or enterprise data. We were able to find out ways to create monetary value out of it. A thing that always didn't make sense to me is, at least until now, because I think it hasn't happened yet. We see the rise in LLMs, and we see the rise in companies like and tool softwares like ChatGPT and Claude and so. And it's a great platform to collect data again, customer data, because we are interacting with the tool at a very personal level. It's at a level of conversation. But until today, we it's difficult to see a way how they could monetize this data, correct? I mean, we looked at the example of, for example, Facebook, which monetizes the data and tries to get monetary value through advertisements or through recommendation engines. But there doesn't seem to be a clear agenda for how a company or a tool like ChatGPT could do this. And I wanted to ask if you had any thoughts on that.
So, I mean, if you look at what ChatGPT, I mean, one of the things that got interesting to me is like one of the latest hires, and I think spent like $1 billion hiring him, was Johnny Ives. And if those of you know Johnny Ives, he was the original designer of the iPhone. And he created the look and feel of the iPhone. I think they spent $1 billion acquiring his company. And that to me was very interesting because ultimately, I see ChatGPT, the monetization of ChatGPT is kind of building applications using the data. And the hiring of Johnny Ives kind of say that, and they brought in a bunch of people like looking at applications that can leverage the data. So, I mean, I see the way they make money in the future. That's my sense, and it's still evolving, is that they will take this data and they will build applications on top of it. And what those applications are, I don't think we know yet. But those applications may be paid for, there may be advertising-based models. To me, like by and large, there are three ways you make money. It's there's an advertising model, you use the data to target ads. There's a subscription model where you get people to pay for the application. And then there is a data model where you sell the data to someone who wants the data for other purposes. It seems to me that ChatGPT is kind of leaned into either the subscription model and trying to figure out what kind of application people will pay for. And I don't think they know yet, but given who they're hiring, it seems that that's the direction in which they want to monetize it. That's my sense.
Okay, I see. So I think that's interesting. So if we were to touch on the two things, so applications. As of today, I think there has been a rise in the number of applications that are leveraging AI through AI agents. It's been popping up more and more. And the subscription model, that is something that ChatGPT has stuck with since the beginning. But even today, if you were to see their balance sheets, they are a net negative company. Their revenue is still, they're not a profit-making company, although they're valued at multiple billions. It's not. They still haven't figured a business model where they can make profit. So is that something that is to be figured, or it's something that is yet to evolve?
I think they haven't figured it out entirely. Is where I think of ChatGPT and any of these LLMs kind of like as a utility. They are the plumbing. If you want to take about it, they're the plumbing, the electric company of AI. So they're, in itself, I don't know that they make a lot of money on that core business. They have to figure out what they build on top of it. And I don't think they have yet, but I think they're in the process of trying to figure out. Their valuation, I think, is basically based on the fact that they are the plumbing. And if you're the plumbing, that means that you have a lot more data and there are more applications you can build. Like you take any of the big technology companies, the basis of their valuation is they've taken data that they've collected and used it to build applications on top of it. Facebook is collecting all data on 2 billion people and using that to target advertising. And their advertising is extremely effective. We've done a fair amount of analysis on it. They're better. If we put an ad on Facebook, it's better because they have better data. Google's the same way. They are also an advertising-based model. They collect enough data on what you're doing. Google has an additional advantage like search. search is a very interesting kind of place because it's in the last phase of when you're buying something. What you do is just before you buy, you go and search. So that makes it a very valuable kind of data point, because whether I'm buying a car, buying a house, buying one of the things that happens just before that is that you go to Google search and you search it, and then Google knows that, and every advertiser wants that information and wants that ability to like then target based on that. The other part is that both of them, and Amazon's done the same thing, is they've figured out that their data, we can use it to target advertising on our platforms. What's really changed in the last 10 years is they've taken the data and said, we can target ads anywhere on the web. So Facebook has its advertising network. So like an advertiser can buy a Facebook ad that places on CNN, but it's using Facebook data.
Right.
So it's leveraging their data, but not necessarily on their application. Amazon does the same thing. So like Amazon, a big part of their business now is basically advertising. So the ads that pop up on the top of it, I think it's like, I forget, it's like they make $5 billion on advertising, something like that, 5 or 10 million. I don't remember the exact number, but it's based on product placement in there. They also have an advertising network. So everywhere on the web you go, you can place an ad on Amazon's ad network, and that ad can be placed in Amazon. It can be placed on CNN. It can be placed in YouTube. It can be placed anywhere on the web.
Right.
But it will leverage their data. So that part of it, they're monetizing, because they're monetizing it on their application. They're monetizing everywhere. And that changes, the scale of like what they can apply. Because before it was like you had to come to their application before they could serve you an ad. Now they figured out we can serve you an ad anywhere.
Right. No, thank you, Bijay.
But it's like it's early innings. I mean, the question is good. I think I guess they're kind of going towards application building. I don't think they know yet.
All right.
So Bijay, just to close the conversation, is it good to share data, or is it better to stay anonymous?
I would say you need to be conscious about the value exchange, right? If you're getting something out of it, by all means share your data. I think the part is that don't be lax about, there's the lazy part of like data sharing. It's like I'm just going to opt in. There's an opt-in there. I'm going to opt in, whatever. I'm just not going to bother. I'm just going to like, whatever. There's a whatever kind of like attitude. If you're getting value out of it, by all means, share your data. You're getting something out of it. You have to determine whether it's valuable, and you don't have to like make it like a big project, but there's a conscious aspect of it. Is that, I think bringing consciousness to your data exchange is important.
So I have opted in for Tesla data sharing, So a big.
Why is that good to you? I guess the question is, why is that a good thing for you?
I'm a big fan of Elon. What
So it's a matter of like your personal kind of
personal, yeah. I think also.
I think he's an asshole, but that's in between here and me. Like
he hopes that his sharing data will improve the efficiency or the safety of his car.
Yeah. No, he's selling insurance policies now. He knows my driving pattern. They have increased Tesla insurances in Dubai for it's very very expensive to buy. So Tesla might eventually offer insurance policy themselves, and that is based on my driving behavior.
Telematics is a huge part that's changed. Tesla has been in the front of it. GM has this thing called OnStar. It's like your car is giving a lot of data signals. The question for a long time was, do I need to collect it? and how can I use it? Those questions kind of, but it's become more and more of things. We want to know your driving pattern. Insurance is a good use case. We want to know how long, and even from a marketing standpoint, we know you're going to replace your car after 100,000 or something. If we know you're getting the 100,000, that's useful information for us. Because we can know that now you're not far from having to replace your car.
Sure. Thanks, Vijay, for this great session, and very rare we get sessions like this. And you did it at your pace, and it was good that it was like going back to university and doing a module. Good refresher.
I'll send the
PPT, yeah.
The PPT if anybody wants to see it. Sure. It's not. I mean, we've got to chat. I pulled it off ChatGPT, so
yeah.
But I added some things to it. I mean, I read it and I changed it to fit what. But
even I ran this thing on the thing, and we covered the entire spectrum: data cost, data management, everything is there. It's not that it's not that we don't know about this. It's about sort of a refresher, different perspective. It helps you in future in terms of this sort of information helps you tacitly in our decision making as well. Some of the choices that we make as well. Yeah. So conscious opt-in, conscious opt-out, things like that are very useful here. So we'll wind up. Thank you very much. We will put the recording up on YouTube, and then I think other people also will make use of it.
Thank you, Vijay.
Anything from your side?
No, nothing. It was fun, and Vijay, I mean, you remind me like in our college we had Tund. Now we have a ChatGPT. At the end, you need to understand what benefits you, right? So,
this is the ultimate analogy, Tund and ChatGPT.
Yeah, because ultimately you need to collect the data to get out of problem. So we have today ChatGPT. Tomorrow we will have maybe Talk GPT. You never know. So that's life. But thank you very much, and
thank you very much. Thanks for everybody.
Good one about yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see you. Bye bye. Good night.
Okay, bye bye.